Hello, Buff fans. Troy and I are back with another episode of the CU Sports Report podcast. Very exciting Thursday as Colorado just secured the commitment of five-star quarterback Julian Lewis. It's been a long time coming, dating back to like June. Even before then, it's just Colorado's kept a close eye. Fans have seen him go up and down, and then recently he get decommitted from USC, denoting to maybe a big jump. And it happened this morning on the Pat McAfee show. Julian Lewis announcing his commitment to Colorado. Very exciting there. Buffs beat Utah by a significant margin, 49-24. Utah, a team that struggled a lot this season with Isaac Wilson, and Colorado beat the brakes off of them offensively in a very interesting way, and we'll get into that with Troy's analysis. Hoops, Colorado beat Harvard on Sunday, and the women are coming off a two-game win streak against Southern and Utah State, which was Peggy's 100th celebration birthday party. Yeah. And we got to talk to Peggy on Tuesday, which is great. I was glad I was able to wish her happy birthday, and we're all able to celebrate her as well. Very busy week. Colorado coming in at number 16 in the AP poll and the CFP rankings at number 16. Things are looking good, and Kansas is on the horizon, a team that has been gaining a lot of heat coming off two ranked wins, giving BYU their first loss of the season last weekend. I couldn't make it through the whole game because I was too exhausted, but luckily Troy stayed up all night to watch that game and see how BYU fumbled the bag in a 17-13 loss. Is that it? Sick. I'm glad I remembered that. Recruiting news. We'll start with that this morning. I think with Julian Lewis announcing his commitment to Colorado, a lot of other movement should be happening shortly with early signing day happening. Very exciting acquisition for Colorado. I mean, there hasn't been a five-star quarterback since, I don't know, I should maybe have that number on the top of my head, but Colorado does not get this kind of talent at quarterback at least years prior to Deion Sanders, and this is Coach Prime's third five-star acquisition in Colorado, in his time at Colorado, and his fourth with Travis Hunter. It was something like something that was meant to maybe be. They worked out a pretty significant kind of contract with Julian Lewis, of course, in this day of NIL. There was a really lucrative package for him that, from the details of it that I cannot say, are very compelling to say the least, and very exciting that Colorado is building for the future, and they have the financial resources and the outlets to be able to build for the future. And with this big acquisition comes a kind of a group of different 4-star and 5-stars that Colorado's been looking at this past couple weeks. Michael Carroll, he was at the game against Utah last week. 6'6", he's very tall. Saw him in person. I was like, wow, that is a tall guy. But with Julian Lewis committing, 5-star offensive tackle Michael Carroll, he's committed to Alabama. 4-star defensive end London Merritt, he visited Colorado last weekend as well. He's still committed to Ohio State. 5-star Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, he's not committed. It's really between Notre Dame, Michigan, and Colorado right now. He took a second visit with Merritt last week as well. And then 4-star offensive tackle Carday Smith, he decommitted from USC this past week as well. Also kind of those dominoes there of Julian Lewis decommitting, Carday Smith decommitting. It seems like Colorado was in Carday Smith's good graces at this point in time. And also Winston Watkins making an appearance, entering the chat again. He was formerly committed to CU last year, but now he's back in the conversation, the IMG prospect. Very exciting movement for Colorado here. Just some notes on Michael Carroll's visit. Colorado definitely has his attention now after that visit, and there's a lot of hype there with his commitment, and Rival has been posting about him, and he took all this recruitment photos, and they look sick. I mean, he looks great in black and gold. Biased take, maybe, but he'd be him and Jordan and Carday Smith as offensive linemen, that's quite an elite duo they would have protecting Julian Lewis in the future. Carday Smith is really torn at the moment, but Colorado is, of course, on his radar with their active recruitment on him. Like I said, with Owusu Batang, it's really Notre Dame and Michigan, but Colorado has been making a really significant impact, according to sources that are familiar with his recruitment. That visit this past week has kind of tightened that gap between Michigan, Notre Dame, Colorado, and IMG Academy 5-star. He is a very, very good. He's a linebacker, I believe. I'll have that up. But anyways, London Merritt. This is a quote on his visit last week. Uh, this time last week, I was there during the week, and I got a chance to see the preparation and the hard work they put in to get ready for games. I also saw their schedule. It's almost like exactly like IMG's schedule, and the transition would be easy. This time, they put an emphasis on how they would utilize my versatility, and I had a great time. Really enjoyed it. Very positive response from his visit. It would be great to flip him, and the way that Colorado flipped Julian Lewis, that could be in the future as well. Quanell X Farrakhan Jr. was also in Boulder this past weekend. Same with Mantrez Walker, both committed to Boulder. And 3-star IMG Academy prospect, defensive end Alexander McPherson, also took an official visit to Colorado this past week. So recruiting's looking good. And this whole week, it's kind of have been notes and hints of what Julian Lewis' next move was going to be in Colorado. It's always been USC in Colorado. While Indiana has had a really phenomenal season this year, there just wasn't enough in that package that Indiana could provide. He also visited Georgia last week, but none of that matters because he's committed to CU now. So very exciting. What was your reaction to the Julian Lewis news this morning?
Yeah, it feels like a continuation of the momentum that this team has kind of been building both on the field and on the recruiting trail over the last, month, 6 weeks, 2 months. And this was kind of the big fish that they needed to set the plan in stone moving forward. Obviously the big question is what's going to happen when Shedeur Sanders leaves, and obviously Travis Hunter and the rest of the guys that are going to be departing after this year. But we know that quarterback is the most important spot. And there was a lot of questions while Julian Lewis was committed to USC. Was he going to flip? Was he going to come here? What would the plan be if he didn't come here? Now we'll see if CU wants to bring in a more experienced option, but now they have their guy their quarterback of the future moving forward. And I think that is a really, really big step that has a chance to kind of open the floodgates for this team on the recruiting trail.
And it certainly has, with just some recent news and some guys that I mentioned. So we'll all see that in the future. There should be some big flips for Colorado moving forward. The game. It was a nice 10 a.m. Oh, fuck, sorry. I just unplugged my laptop. It was a nice 10 a.m. kickoff. We settled in. They had breakfast burritos, much better than the usual hot dog. And Colorado really kind of got off to the races in this one, with opening up with a 40-yard touchdown to Will Shepard, and then LeJontay Wester scoring Colorado's first punt return for a 76-yard return this season. And from what you saw and what we saw, it's like Colorado wasn't really moving the chains as effectively, but then they would have these huge plays for 20 plus yards to get them closer into the red zone. I mean, it wasn't you could, from on paper, it looks like a really flawless offensive performance, scoring a season high 49 points against the best defense in the Big 12. They were ranked 14th in FBS last week. What was it about this game that you're like, okay, that's interesting, but they were still able to move the ball well, but Pat Shurmur was making some interesting play calls, no?
Yeah, I want to preface this because I when I went back and watched I felt pretty negative about the offense. I thought the defense played well. They took their foot off the gas in the second half. But I want to preface this by saying that this team is now, at this point, they are being graded on a curve, right? Like we could sit here and say, the linebackers played really well and they stopped the run really well and the pass rush was really good and the defense forced a bunch of turnovers. But these are things that we know about this team now. Those are the things that they have gotten at just about every single week for the last 2 months or so. Now, we're at the point where we have to look at this team like a team that is competing for a conference championship and a team that's competing for a playoff spot. And if you're competing for a playoff spot, that means that you are competing for a national championship. And at looking at this game through that lens, I thought the offense did not play very well, to be honest. They did not run the football very well. They did not try to run the football very much. And Utah has a very good front seven, one of the best front sevens that CU will play during the regular season, at least. Um, the tackles struggled in this game. Jordan Seaton had his worst game in a good while. And this isn't any sort of alarm about Jordan Seaton or anything, but he struggled. He got called for a couple holding penalties in the first half. He gave up 4 pressures. I didn't think Philip Houston played very well on the other side. I believe he gave up 5 pressures. So that is something that I think, as we get into the nitty gritty here down the stretch of the season, some of these teams are going to start to key in on that. Justin Mayers struggled as well, although that's a harder thing to target with CU constantly rotating guys at guard. But the tackles, especially Philip Houston, I think are going to start to get singled out in pass protection a little bit, and they're going to be some of the keys to this operation holding up. Overall, it was way too boom or bust offensively for CU, and against better teams, that's not going to fly. Like, are you going to be able to catch however many? I think they had 3 35-yard touchdowns or longer. They also had the big play to Travis Hunter right before the half. That set up a touchdown. The punt return was a touchdown. But overall, down to down, this offense did not move the football very well. They were really I believe in the passing game, there was nothing that felt like it came in rhythm. There was nothing that felt easy. And I think part of that is I didn't love the plan from Pat Shurmur. CU threw a ton of screens in this game. They are a screen team, but Shador Sanders dropped back for 46 times, and 15 of those were screen passes. So just about 1 out of every 3 passing plays was a screen. That is too many, especially against a Utah defense that is very disciplined, very well coached. They're very sound fundamentally. They fly to the football. They tackle really well. So those things that worked the week before against a team like Texas Tech that doesn't tackle well on the perimeter, they were getting nothing out of that against this Utah defense. They were running a lot of these little play action. They ran that slide route they like to do with LeJontay Wester, where they run a little play action one way and Wester comes across the formation. They ran it, I think, 3 times on one drive at one point. It just felt like they were going side to side. Like it felt, this is a football cliche, but it felt like they were going east and west, even in the passing game, and not north and south. And I think that this stat, Shador drop back, I think he had 19 play action dropbacks in this one, and his average depth of target, which it was negative 0.5 yards. So the average play action pass that he threw was going behind the line of scrimmage.
Hmm.
And they just weren't having any success with any of this stuff in this game. And I didn't really feel like Shurmur adjusted in this one as well as he has in past games. That's been one of the big selling points for him throughout this season. It's been one of his best traits. I didn't think he really had that in this one. The plus is they do have the talent to make those explosive plays. Will Shepherd's a great contested catch guy. Obviously, Travis can go up and get the ball over just about anyone. And that was how they kind of moved the ball in this one. And that worked on Saturday. I'm skeptical of how much success they are going to be able to find with that moving forward. I think that they need to get back to just some of the more on schedule stuff, some of the more in rhythm stuff. Some of the underneath passes, some of the intermediate passes. I didn't think Shador played very well in this game either. I thought that he was slow into his drop sometimes, and as a result, he missed some stuff underneath. He was late to some things. I didn't think he played. I didn't think his timing was very good in this game. So I wasn't impressed with the offense, despite what the stats and what the final score said. And it should be said, Utah is a very, very difficult defense to play against, a very, very good defense. So this isn't some major like we need to panic about the CU offense. We know what this group can do. I just didn't. I was unimpressed. I didn't think that this was. Uh, I didn't think they played their best football on that side of the ball in this one.
Yeah, there was some sort of kind of lack of rhythm and pace, and then all of a sudden, all the Folsom Field would just light up because there would be this 40-yard huge play. And I think a key signifier, you look at the score 49-24, but Colorado only had 17 first downs throughout this whole game, and that definitely alludes to a lot of what you were saying. It just wasn't as effective as it's been in previous weeks. I mean, they were a little bit better running the ball. Of course, Isaiah Augusta had that 37-yard touchdown, but there was a lot of those big plays just came on when Utah was just out of their defense was out of rhythm. They just broke open. They weren't in the proper coverage for that play, and they of course they have very explosive playmakers being able to do that, but as you mentioned, it's not something where this can be, a certain theme moving forward, especially as they're college football playoff teams could potentially get into the mix, and maybe something that Kansas can respond to as well. So interesting notes there, Troy. Some things that I didn't notice about this game. You look at Shedeur Sanders, 30 of 41, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have that interception at the beginning of the game. I was like, what? We were like, what? It was the first play of the game, and that was just it was another interesting mistake that he made, and there were some inconsistencies in his game, but on paper it's like, okay, he's still putting up some huge numbers. It's just not, most of those numbers are coming after the catch, which the wide receivers and down Hayden bit, they ran for 161 yards after the catch, and Draylon Miller also getting incorporated into the offense. Excited to see him step up. I know he's
excellent in the game.
Anyone who's compared to Deebo Samuel, I'm like, let's go, man. Because I mean, he does have those same, packages of a running back that can really bust through tackles. He's really good on screens. He's able to really power through anyone who's on him, and had a 47-yard score, and overall his best game of his career so far. So I'm interested to see how Colorado will be utilizing him and, his variety that he provides on the offense moving forward. Charlie Offerdall also got his first touchdown.
Yeah, shout out to Charlie. That was a great moment. He deserved that. That was great to see.
And because I was on the field when this happened, but the reverse, they named that reverse. That ball was supposed to go to Shedeur. Travis was supposed to throw the ball to Shedeur, but Shedeur tripped and fell. So then Travis took it in himself. But that play was called the Heisman. And as Travis looks to potentially get the Heisman this upcoming December, maybe we'll see that play again in the right setting. I mean, Oklahoma State would be a great opportunity to run that play again.
Shedeur was double covered on that play, and then so it was he made it tough on he didn't give Travis a big target. Travis scored anyway because of course he did, but yeah, it wasn't very sneaky. It wasn't very sneaky. They didn't, they tried to Philly special, but Utah was all over it.
I forgot what game it was. I think it was a couple weeks ago, but I was sitting in the press box and I was like, I would like to see Shedeur catch a pass. I mean, he needs to do. I think it was that week when like Bo Nix caught a pass from one of his receivers in that pass game. I'm like, that'd be very interesting. And they almost pulled it off, but they didn't, because I mean, Utah saw that one coming when Shedeur went down the field. They're like, oh, they're trying to pull some shit right now, and it did not. It ended up working. I mean, in Colorado's favor, and it was a really nice, surprising touchdown just to
6 points is 6
seal the game. They scored 21 points in the fourth quarter, and they were able to score at least one touchdown through all four. So, I mean, this offense is averaging 35.9 points per game in their last 6 contests. So I think what's been really exciting is just every week, I think we get maybe not a new flavor. We know what to anticipate, but this team consistently is able to find ways to win and is paving the way towards a Big 12 championship, as BYU took their first loss against their opponent, Kansas. We'll get into that in a moment.
Shout out Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay.
I'll
I'll
throw it in
go.
this.
You want to go? I can go.
Go ahead.
Okay.
My fault.
Amari McNeil has been someone who has been really impressive these past two games. He got 1.5 sacks against Texas Tech, and this week he was very disruptive against Isaac Wilson, and he got one sack, one tackle for loss, and two quarterback pressures. I think this has been a prominent topic. When you watch Amari McNeil, at least in these past two games, what has really impressed you about him and his ability to get in the backfield?
Just his ability to beat blocks in multiple ways. He can go through you, he can go around you. He's not chasing the big play. He's letting the big plays come to him, and he's getting them. Obviously, he's getting these splash plays with these sacks and these tackle for losses, but he's not skipping gaps to try to get there, and then you get gashed in the run game because of it. He's not, getting out of his rush lane in the pass rush, and then you let the quarterback step up and scramble through the middle in the pocket. That's been the most impressive part to me of both Amari McNeil, and I wrote this about the whole defense. This has become such a sound, reliable unit, and you feel how well coached and how disciplined they are when you watch them play. They trust each other. They trust that, hey, if I'm the defensive tackle and I take my gap here and I force the running back to cut back, I'm not going to make the tackle, but I know one of my teammates is going to be right there to make the tackle for a 2 yard gain. And boom, now you're 2nd and 8. That's a successful play. They are so comfortable playing together, and they really are assignment sound. And I think it was really hard for Utah to run the football because of that. I think that they're hard to throw the football against because of that. Obviously, the way that they're rushing the passer right now from all the spots on the defensive line is really, really impactful. I think that's the biggest thing that's raised the ceiling of this defense is the pass rush, but they're not just flying upfield and just, like pinning their ears back when they don't need to be, because that's how you get beat by scrambling quarterbacks. That's how you get beat in the running game by some of these spread teams. They're not selling out to do any of this stuff that they are good at. It all comes within the scheme. It all comes within the flow of the game. They're really, really good. This is such a the offense has a higher ceiling. We know what the offense can do, but it's pretty incredible to think that from where we were at the start of the season, that this CU defense is kind of the rock of this team. The CU defense is the steady unit. That is the group that I think they can really depend on week in and week out, series in and series out. We talked about, again, during the game, Shedeur Sanders throws an interception on the first play of the game. Defense forces a field goal. Boom, they get off the field. Every single time they are asked to step up in a tough situation. We talked about it against Texas Tech when the game could have been 21-0, but it was only 13-0 because defense digs in, they're sound, they force field goals in the red zone. It's just a really, really impressive how reliable this unit has become.
Certainly, and they lead the Big 12 in sacks this season with 33. I mean, at the beginning of the season, you see a guy like Robert Livingston who comes from a secondary background. It's like, what is this defensive front going to look like? And Hall of Famer Warren Sapp and Damian Lewis are really crafting a pass rush that teams are really game planning around. They have multiple guys, they have a deep rotation of different weapons there that it's like you have to prepare for all these different guys that are coming at you. And like you said, it's like they're able to really bust through guys no matter kind of who it is. And everyone's really eating in this defense. I mean, just from the front to the back, there's so many different weapons. I was talking to one of our colleagues, John Kirby, who works for the Kansas rival site, and he was like, name some guys that Kansas should look out for. And I was like, well, there's
A lot of
so many
guys,
I can
man.
list,
Even
especially on
guys
the
like
defense.
even guys like it's the development of some of these guys that have come along and are making plays. The biggest one to me, Colton Hood has become a really, really good corner, man. He's a really, really good corner. He made the play on the Travis interception, I believe, which was an excellent play
Mm-hmm.
by him. Travis gets the pick, but Colton Hood made the play. He's become a good cover corner. You see Carter Stoutmeyer, who played a lot last year and switched positions this offseason, and he didn't really know what his role was going to be. Is he going to be a safety? Is he going to be a corner? Is he going to be a slot corner? Is in the nickel? He comes in the dime and boom, they need him to play safety, he can play safety. They need him to play zone over the middle of the field, he can do that. They need him to man up somebody in the slot, he's doing that. They need him to come downhill and run support and be physical and make tackles. He made a big stick after the catch early in the game that was almost a fumble. It was incomplete. But he is stepping up whenever he's asked to. These guys are really coming along together as a unit, and they have so many quality players on that side of the ball right now.
Yeah, Preston Hodge, who was out on Saturday against Utah, Curtis Stoudemire stepped up. I mean, Preston Hodge is usually kind of in that nickel, but they were able to suffice without him. Keaton Wade, he was asked about after the game. He will not be taking a red shirt this year, and Keaton Wade has also been one of those pass rushers. Let's get it's like okay, he has a couple sacks. He has I think 3.5 sacks this season, but now he's opting out of his red shirt because the Buffs need him now, and he's been able to make plays and really be a productive asset. And you just mentioned the development of this defense. So, there's Travis Hunter headlining it, of course, but it's all the guys in between that are really keeping this, unit together and keeping it just so stout from front to back. And I think week in and week out, we just mentioned how solid this unit is and what they've done for this team and how much they've evolved over the past year from a team that was literally one of the worst total defenses in the country to now a really good contending defense that offenses in the Big 12 have a really hard time navigating against. So, very good job of the defense once again. I mean, I guess I'll mention this is like Isaac Wilson got the first touchdown against Travis Hunter, but I feel like it was Dorian Singer that did the heavy lifting. It was a great ball by Isaac Wilson. Dorian Singer kind of beat Travis Hunter in the corner there, and that was Travis Hunter's first touchdown allowed of the season. I think it was on the 40-yard play,
Yeah.
but
There is
like,
no
who would
corner,
have thought?
there is no corner who can go a whole season playing as much press man with no help as CU does and not get scored on. It was coming eventually.
Yeah, and it came, and now they can adjust and work around it too. Heisman conversation. I'm trying to figure out my Heisman
Shout
trophy
out
this year.
can I shout out the special teams really fast
Yeah,
too?
for sure.
We bash the special teams when they have been bad earlier in the year. They were phenomenal in this game. Jalen Wester got his hand on a punt. LeJontay Wester took a punt back for a touchdown. Great, great, great day for the special teams in this game.
Yes, it was. And now we'll go on to Kansas, and yeah, this team is interesting. With yeah, they are certainly a weird one. We're on a 5-game losing streak in really close games where they had potential to win, but they weren't able to manage the ball well. And then all of a sudden they come out and beat Houston to break that losing streak, go in a close loss against Kansas State, beat ranked Iowa State after they lost against Texas Tech, and gave BYU their first loss of the season. And it's like, Kansas? I'm like, what? You think you write off a team after they've lost 5 games in a row that they would have the same tendencies, but this has been a really resilient unit that has all of a sudden kind of flipped the switch and believed in themselves and is able to, no matter what the opponent is, they're able to come out with these really surprising wins late in the season where they could have just thrown away their season. They could have just been done. They said, nope, we're going to surprise some people, and they have surprised some people as well. So when you watch this team and you watch against BYU, what do you feel like has changed from maybe where they were and where they are now?
They're out here to ruin everybody's season. Seriously, it would have been
Yeah.
so easy for them to punt on this. They want everybody to go down with them. Iowa State, BYU, everybody. This is and I haven't looked at every 4 and 6 team in the country, but this might be the best one. I think looking at CU's schedule, this is one of the best teams that Colorado has played against. Despite their record, they're very solid down to down. They're very good situationally. The turnovers is kind of where I think you have to start with Kansas. That's what has cost them a lot of these games. But when you dig into these games, they've been right there. They turned the ball over 4 times On the road against Illinois early in the season. Illinois is in the top 25 right now. Kansas lost by 6. Jalen Daniels threw 2 picks on the road, or no, at home in the soccer field against UNLV earlier in the season. UNLV's in the top 25 right now. They lost that game by 3 points. They lost on the road against West Virginia, who is in a middle of the pack Big 12 team by 4 points because of a late fumble. They lost against Kansas State, who we know what Kansas State can do. They lost that game by 2 points on a disastrous late fumble that they were legitimately a few yards from winning the game, and they fumbled and lost. And that's the kind of year that they've had. But the last 2 weeks, they're +2 in turnover margin. And what do you know? They've won 2 games against 2 teams that are in the top 25. So if they can kind of keep the train on the tracks and just, be more dependable, be more consistent, this team is really, really good. They've got talent on both sides of the ball, which we will get into. But don't be fooled by the 4-6. This is one of the biggest challenges on Colorado's schedule all season, and they will need to bring their A game on Saturday again in what will be a raucous environment up at Arrowhead.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm very excited flying there, not driving after last week's debacle. But this offense has been surprising, beating some of these teams. And I think what we've seen from KU is just the balance that they have with Jalen Daniels, not to be mistaken with Jalen Daniels of the Commanders. Two different people. But they have Devin Neal at running back, who is the leader, of course, in rushing. I think 925 yards this season. They're able to run the ball well. Daniels is an efficient quarterback, has over 1,000 yards this season, and has been kind of picking up the pace, maybe turning the ball over a little bit less. I think that's been one of his issues, is he is kind of prone to interceptions, but they've been able to close out games, whether or not it looks good or not. They are able to kind of get more creative with the tools that they have on the ground and in the air. When you see this offense, what do you think will be Colorado's biggest concern in trying to limit them in this game?
Yeah, they run the ball well. You mentioned it. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Another great back on the
What?
other side.
No
This
way.
I'm going through it right now. They've played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will be the 6th really, really good running back in 11 games that CU has played against, which is pretty amazing. The gauntlet that they've gone through. Devin Neal's a really good player, and they're really tough to defend on the ground because of what Jalen Daniels provides for them. They do some read stuff with the two of them, but they run the two of them independently a lot, kind of similar, not scheme wise as much, but the way that they kind of distribute the carries is more similar to what UCF did with KJ Jefferson and RJ Harvey. They're not afraid to run the quarterback. Anything they run with the running back, they can run with the quarterback. That's the similarity to UCF. They can run the quarterback power. They can run the quarterback counter. They'll just snap it to him and run him on the outside on a sweep. They'll do all of that with Devin Neal as well. And those two guys are both really, really explosive. They're great athletes. They're really difficult to get on the ground in the open field. That'll be a big theme in this one, open field tackling. I am really confident in the CU run defense right now, just the way that they're playing, not giving up explosives, tackling really well. I mentioned how gap sound they are, how assignment sound they are. I'm confident in them to not get gashed in this matchup, but that is the challenge with defending Kansas on the ground. And if you can be steady with Kansas on the ground and you make them throw the ball on some of these passing situations, that's where you can come up with some of these splash plays.
Mm-hmm. Force a little bit more of those turnovers. And I think you mentioned just the consistency against most talented running backs in the conference. Colorado has shown that they can show up on that side of the field and really get into the backfield and disrupt and break down plays. The defense just played one of their best games all season against BYU, held them, the Cougars, to a season low. 17 points. They have an explosive linebacker with JB Brown. He has 63 tackles this season. Capable pass rushers here. I think their corners and secondary did a phenomenal job breaking up a lot of BYU's passing plays last weekend. Defense. This defense, should Shador Sanders be looking out for? Is this a matchup that Shador has the upper hand in, or is there going to be some surprises there at Arrowhead?
This is a LeJohntay Wester matchup right
Cool.
here. LeJohntay Wester could be in for a big day working out of the slot. And the reason I say that is because these two corners that Kansas has on the outside are really, really good players in coverage. One of the best duos in the country. Kobe Bryant on one side, who is very excited for this game, as
Yeah.
said multiple times this week. And then Mello Dotson on the other side is a really, really good player as well. He had a big pick six in that Iowa State game. Those two guys have 9 picks combined, which is for two outside corners who are at the top of the scouting report every single week. 9 picks is a lot. They are ball hawks. They get to the football. They make plays on the ball. They've got really good ball skills. Kansas mixes things up in coverage, some man, some zone. They play a lot of off man, which you don't see a lot. CU does basically none of it. Every time CU plays man, it's usually they're pressed up at the line of scrimmage. Kansas plays a lot of off man where the corners will be 8, 9, 10 yards off. But they're really, really good at it. They're sticky in coverage. They do play some zone as well. They mix it up a little bit. But you've got to know where these two guys are at all times. And you've got to be careful when you're throwing the ball at them. The one weakness I think that they have on the outside is they can make Mello Dotson tackle. I think that is an advantage, especially if you get Travis over on his side. He has 41 total tackles this season, and he has 10 missed tackles, which is a lot. That's not a very good ratio. He's a smaller guy. So I think that that's somewhere you can get them on the outside with some of these short passes, especially if they're in this off-man coverage. You can just get to snap and throw the ball out there. I expect some of that with the RPOs that CU runs. Some of that, just give Travis Hunter or Will Shepherd has become better than I thought he would be after the catch. He's very good at making guys miss too. So they could get some big plays off of that, but I do think that LeJohntay Wester out of the slot, working over the middle, working against the slot corners, working against the linebackers in zone coverage, I think that is going to be one of the areas where CU can attack, and I think that it could be a big game for him on the inside.
Yeah, maybe we'll see some more of that rhythm and pace that was lacking against Utah in this matchup. Get Isaiah Augusta more on those chunk plays, but Colorado hasn't lost a road game since they played at Nebraska. And in those road games, they are winning by significant margins, and they continue to power through down the stretch of the season as they pursue a Big 12 championship and potential bid. Oh my God, it'd be so sick if we were able to do that this year. And this is the team to do it. This is the team that has kind of defied all of the odds this year, being projected 11th in the conference now. Has eyes on first place, and they're currently tied for first with BYU, but BYU has a better overall schedule. Colorado 8-2, I think. BYU 9-1. Should be a very exciting game, and I am super pumped to go to Kansas City. I love that city. My aunt and uncle used to live there, and we have some good barbecue. But before I get into all my antics and trying to get there, score predictions for this game. Of course, you guessed it. I'm taking Colorado to win this game, 31-27. I always pick these close matchups, but Colorado has been winning by at least 10 or more points, down the stretch here. But still picking a close matchup. I was staying within that range, but I think Colorado has the upper hand in this. At least their defense is going to really kind of ruffle some feathers, no pun intended, against the Jayhawks offense and what they're trying to produce. I've really been impressed with the way that they've been limiting running backs, and I think in turn with limiting Devin Neal will come some potential turnovers in the air. But I think Colorado will find a way on the offense, get into the end zone. It'll be a lot of maybe another game where as you mentioned, this is going to be a LeJontay Wester game where he's going to be running a lot on the ground. There's going to be some yards after catch, but they have ample weapons to get the job done, as they've shown throughout the season, and they've been really good on the road. So I have Colorado winning. And yeah, what's your score prediction?
The whole time I prepped for this game, I did not think about who I thought was going to win, which is odd. I do want to hit on the key to the game, though,
Key to the
first. So I
game,
will think of a
yes.
score while I'm doing this.
Okay, you're so
Uh,
multifaceted.
the pass rush, the pressure, that is the key. That is where you can get this Kansas offense. That is where you can bog them down. That is where you can make plays. In the secondary, that is where you can create turnovers. We know that CU leads the Big 12 in sacks. They're sixth in the nation in sacks. Jalen Daniels under pressure this year has been really bad. It really has not been good. He is 19 for 59 passing with 1 touchdown and 4 picks when he's been
Oof,
this year. He's
oof.
pressured about 27% of the time, which is not a ton. Like it's about roughly an average rate. When he's under pressure, according to PFF, he has a turnover-worthy play rate of almost 10%. I think it's like 9.5, which is an astronomically high number. And his average depth of target when he's under pressure is about 15 yards. So when he is under pressure, he is chucking it, and he is praying that somebody in a blue or white jersey comes down with it. And obviously, based on the numbers that I just read, that has not happened very often. So if CU, whether they want to blitz more, whether they can get pressure with four, getting pressure on the quarterback, that is where this game is going to be won for the CU defense. As for my score, I'm picking a low scoring game. I just don't love where the CU offense is at right now. I think the crowd noise might be a problem in Arrowhead. People are going to be fired up for this one. I'm picking CU 26-23 in overtime.
Ooh, I like that. That'd be exciting. Maybe a little
Very, yeah.
overtime game just to get them all shaken up just before Oklahoma State next week. Yeah, should be a fun one. I'm very excited to go to Arrowhead, as I mentioned. Thanks for mentioning your keep the game. I also agree. I don't know if I would ever disagree with you, maybe on your NFL football team preference, which I'm also upset about, and I always mention.
Hey,
But
we deserved
we're not
one.
going to talk about that.
I almost wore full Seahawks gear to do this, by the way. I
I
was
know.
I was so close to doing it.
You sent me Geno Smith grittying, but I will argue that the meme that I sent you of the SpongeBob cashier gif after the 49ers beat the Seahawks was much better than Geno Smith hitting gritty.
I'm
So,
also extra mad because at your team because I hate them in general, and Debo Samuel is just launching my fantasy team into the sun.
oh,
But that's not the here nor there.
I know. It's it's a season of exposure therapy and being mediocre at something that you thought you were good at.
That's
Basketball. Colorado men's played Harvard on Sunday, beat them 88-66. Solid win. Andre Yakumovsky posted a season high 20 points for the Buffs, shot 7 of 14. They didn't turn the ball over as much as they did in previous games. Still 13 turnovers, and I think against Cal State Fullerton they had 16. So still trying to knock some of those turnovers down, but including Yakumovsky, Trevor Baskin, Elijah Malone, and Javon Ruffin all got into double digits scoring. Trevor Baskin had his first start as well against Harvard and showed to be good. I mean, when you see him get on the floor, he immediately affects both ends. He's a really good defensive player, able to kind of poke out some steals there, and he had 7 rebounds as well, pretty good off the glass. Him and Elijah Malone, who has had a really good season so far, led in rebounds against Harvard over the weekend. I am very interested. We'll get into the Michigan State game, but really interested to see how they perform in that, how they're preparing for that because they play, I believe, on the 25th. They have a week. They haven't played all week, and they're going to Maui for what should be a really eye-opening tournament. I mean, so far these non-conference teams, they haven't been as good. They've been beating at least everyone except UNC by 20 or more points. So there's a little bit more separation there, and Colorado showing their, power four dominance. But you can, on the floor, you can kind of see some of those crux of like they don't really have a guy yet, but I feel like as they've been playing more games, that chemistry is being built a little bit more, and they may have a little bit more consistency there. They're able to share the ball a little bit well, and you just never really know who's going to be the standout of the game and who's going to really carry the team. But I like the way Yakimovsky is trending. He has 17 points against Cal State Fullerton. Of course, I mentioned his 20 against Harvard. And yeah, they shot 51.8% from the field, 47.4 from three. They made 9 of their 19 3-point shots, most of them. I guess 2 from Hammond and 2 makes from Yakimovsky as well, and 2 from Javon Ruffin, who loves to shoot the three. It's kind of this ragtag group of buffs at the moment, trying to find, their strengths, trying to defeat their weaknesses. And I guess against Tom Izzo and the Spartans, there'll be a lot of answers on what this team needs to work on and how they really rise to the occasion against the one of the better teams, I should say, in college basketball, and then some of the best teams, if they are able to make that game, they'll either play UConn or Memphis if they win that game. Am I correct?
If they win or lose, they'll play. The losers will play each other, and the winners will.
Okay. Well, UConn being UConn, they're probably going to just steamroll that entire. But it's a great opportunity for Colorado to see, what they're made of there, and um, what the future holds for them potentially in the Big 12. So I guess we can, maybe talk about Michigan State. What are you looking for in this matchup against Michigan State? What would you want to take away and be like, okay, win or lose, they're like, okay, they can actually, hold their heads above the water as they go into conference play this season.
Sidebar on Dan Hurley. Did you see where they won by 35 points the other night? And he sat down at the press conference and he goes, "That was comically bad."
No, I didn't see that.
Dan Hurley cracks me up. This CU team, they played a soft schedule, but it feels like that was what this team needed. It feels like that was good for them. They got tested the one game against UNC, obviously, but it does feel like the holes are still there, but it feels like they're just starting to play more crisp, more efficient, more, this is incredible analysis, but it feels like they're playing better basketball. Like at the beginning of the year it was pretty ugly, and now it feels like that they have a little bit of a foundation. They're not giving the ball away a ton. Andre Akmovsky's played really well. Trevor Baskin is active defensively. They've got a lot of length on that end of the floor. They can make it tough on you on that end of the court, and I think that at least gives them a shot out in Maui next week. We'll see how they play away from home. Obviously, we haven't seen that yet. This Michigan State team is pretty good, well-rounded, deep. They play a lot of guys. They played Kansas really, really tough in the
Championship Classic.
I think it was it's one of those preseason events. They played Kansas pretty tough. Kansas is a really, really good team. And, Jaden Akins is the leading scorer coming back from last year. They lost some pieces from last year, Tyson Walker, AJ Hogard. But this is the deep team. We know Tom Izzo is always going to put a pretty good team out there. That'll be a good test. I think it's a good test for CU to start the tournament off with a team who is good. They're well coached. They're disciplined. They're going to challenge you. They're not going to fall off a cliff when the bench comes in the game. They're going to make you play for 40 minutes on both ends. They're going to make you play well to stay in the game, to win the game. But I do think that it's good for them that they're not starting off with like UConn or North Carolina, a team that can just run you off the floor in 10 minutes. Any team, not just CU. So I think that Michigan State is a good measuring stick of, hey, this is a Power Four team. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament as a middle seed, probably somewhere, playing in the Big Ten. I think that this is a good game. We're going to learn a lot about this team. not only on Monday but through the whole tournament. But I'm interested in the matchup uh, in the opening round against Michigan State.
Yeah, should be a fun tournament. We'll switch to the women's here. They lost only lost this season came against Boise State. They beat Nevada. We talked about last week. They had their a win at home against Southern, and then another win against Utah State, which was Peggy's 100th birthday celebration. And they almost scored 100 points. They beat Utah State 95-65, and it would have been really special if they were able to kind of notch that 100-point mark. But still, Lior Gazzarone had a career high 28 points against Utah State. They shot the ball really well. They made 55.6% from the field and 55.6% from 3-pointers as well. Not Kendall Wood. Frida Foreman was back in this game. She came out really hot, 5 of 10, 3 for 6. They call her Frida for a reason. Scored 15 points, and then Jade Masaigo. I want to pronounce her Masaigo. That's how you pronounce. Yeah, Mesa Gallo. Thanks, Troy. This is an ongoing thing with me, but she had 17 points, also shot the ball well, 6 of 7, and 5 of 7 from the line, able to get to the stripe a couple times, well, a few times there, and overall, very well-rounded game, very dominant game against, a Utah State team, non-conference team, of course, that isn't as well-rounded and as stout as a Power 4 Buffs JR-led team, and oh yeah, solid performance, solid showing from them. They did have 26 turnovers though, and they were able to score 95 points. So there was some this not the best ball management there, but I mean with the
it feels impossible to score 95 points and turn the ball over 26 times in 40 minutes, but they did it.
Yeah, and I think what really set them apart in this match against Utah State, they were able to outscore them 27-3 in the third quarter. So Utah State really fumbled the bag in that one. I mean, they kind of stayed close throughout the game. At the half, they were, not trailing by much, and then in the third quarter, it really fell flat for them. And yeah, the Buffs are now, let me see what they're 5-1. 5-1. They're on a 3-game win streak, and they beat Southern by 20 points as well at home. I'm trying to pull that one up as well. But if you watched some of the women's games so far, what has been really standing out to you throughout these past 2 games? Sorry if you can hear my cat. She's going crazy today. I left the door open so she wouldn't bang it down, but when you let her in, she's gonna let her voice be known.
I think that having Frida back is a big deal. Like, even, obviously she's shooting the ball pretty well already. But I think just having her back is such a boost, it feels like the offense can take a deep breath. Like, they finally have some space to work in the half court. They finally have somebody out there who creates some gravity from the defense. Like, hey, we know we can't leave her open, right? Everything felt so difficult without her in the game, in the half court. They're still running a little bit. They're still getting some stuff in transition. Kendall Wetta's playing faster. Naimir Du is a really good athlete who can get out in transition. Jade Mesa Gallo runs the floor really, really well. But when they get in the half court, everything was so difficult for them before Frida came back. And now it feels like now we have some more space to work. Now our drives have more space. We can get paint touches. Now, if we throw the ball down into the post and Frida's in the strong side corner, we know we're going to get a one-on-one there because they can't help off of that. Just having her out there, and Lior Garzón shooting the ball really, really well. Again, she had a couple of off games. That helps as well. So it feels like that they are finding the shooters that they need to be able to operate in the half court. Everybody, not just the shooters. The shooters are making shots, 10 for 18 from 3 as a team against Utah State. But we know that a J.R. Payne coached team is going to defend. They're going to play hard. They're going to get on the glass. We'll see how they're able to play on the boards against bigger teams in the Big 12. But they were plus 17 on the boards in this game. They forced 20 turnovers. We know that is what a J.R. Payne team is going to do. We know that that's what they're going to look like. What's going to decide whether they can be a top half of the Big 12 team, whether they can be an NCAA tournament team, is going to be, can you reliably score in the half court? Can you get to things that you like over and over in the half court? And it feels like they're able to do that more easily now with whether she's scoring the ball or not, with Frida Foreman back on the floor, just because of the attention she draws. She's at the top of the scouting report for these other teams, and it feels like that they now, with her back on the court, they can finally start to build on that end of the floor.
Yeah, there's more productivity there with having Frida Foreman back. She does just provide this new elevated level to the offense that it's kind of a pretty drastic difference. But I think as they've all played more games together, of course, J.R. Payne brought in 10 new transfers. There's more trust being built, there's more chemistry being built, and they're slowly but surely making their way through the season. They have Utah Tech on November 27th. And you mentioned you're ready to see them maybe play a bigger team, and they'll play currently 25 ranked Louisville on November 30th, which is the day after the Buffs game against Oklahoma State. So there'll be a kind of a defining game there. See where they stand against one of the best teams, top 25 teams in the country. We'll see how Louisville does. They're 2-2 this season so far, so
Tough
even.
schedule. They've played tough schedule. They lost to UCLA, I know, and then I think they lost to Kentucky. So they have lost
Oh yeah,
two ranked teams.
that is tough. That is tough. Well, guys, that is all from us today. Very exciting Thursday, and excited to go to Kansas City tomorrow. I leave early in the morning, and yeah, should be a fun one. And I've never been to Arrowhead, and hopefully I can kind of manifest, put some bad vibes out there for Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, you listen to this, which you probably never will. I'll be in your city, dog.
Rent free.
He
Rent
does.
free.
I know. I can't.
Rent free.
Anyways, that's all from us. We'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for hanging
Julian
in.
Lewis, welcome to Boulder.
Woo!